Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find the Full Court Press on all social media outlets as well. And don't forget to find yours truly on YouTube, simply Drew Duncan. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to be talking UFC. We're going to be talking NFL. And, of course, we're going to be talking some college basketball. And that is what I want to get to right now. A lot of people are up in arms that Michigan State is not a 1 seed. They are instead a 2 seed. Matter of fact, the Big Ten, a lot of people felt got slighted overall. Michigan is a 2 seed. Michigan State is a 2 seed. Wisconsin is a 5 seed. Purdue got in. I believe they're a 3 seed, if I remember correctly. I did a little video on this yesterday just to kind of get things started, but I wanted to give you the full court press, if you will, on this. All right. I want to reiterate things that I said in the video yesterday. Number one, Michigan State's out-of-conference schedule was not the most difficult in the country. And when you break it down, playing teams like Oakland, FGCU, Louisiana Lafayette, their biggest game of the year was KU. They lost. They lost to Louisville considerably in that basketball game. Louisville, not even a ranked basketball team when all is said and done. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to say, well, they beat Michigan, though, on multiple occasions. And I can appreciate that argument. They did beat Michigan, who, by the way, I felt had a better out-of-conference schedule. Playing Villanova, they won that game. Playing North Carolina, they did win that game. And I think that Michigan was probably given a 2 seed predicated upon those wins and overall good season. They go all the way to their conference tournament championship. But you start looking at the Big Ten basketball as a whole, right? Your premier teams are going to be Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Wisconsin. As I said yesterday, Wisconsin, they get in at a 5 seed. To me, that's kind of a gift wrap. They're going to be playing Oregon, Pac-12, not that good this year. By the way, a Pac-12 team in UCLA also beat Michigan State. You start looking at Michigan and their losses, though, Purdue, Penn State. You start looking at what they did combined on the road. All 4 of those teams, Purdue, Michigan, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, on the road are 29-19. Not exactly a good look. Matter of fact, I think it was Purdue that was 6-6. The other teams broke even with 8-5, 7-4. So you start looking at what is the committee looking at. I don't understand. These are some of those things. Of course, the head-to-head Michigan State was better than Michigan in every single game that they played. By the same token, you start looking at similar conference play. Who are the teams that they played within those conferences? How good did those teams finish? You start looking at Michigan State. What was their out-of-conference schedule like? Michigan, Wisconsin, Purdue, etc. And the bottom line is as far as out-of-conference play goes, Michigan was a team that was actually holding it down for the conference and represented the Big Ten better than Michigan State actually did. That's just the bottom line scenario. And I know that there are conspiracy theorists out there that are going, well, they just want Michigan State to play against Duke. Let's just pretend that that's the reason for argument's sake here. So wouldn't that be epic? Look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Ultimately, all this is going to come through the wash, is it not? We're going to find out how good Duke really is, and Zion Williamson can 1 year of collegiate basketball be enough to help him propel his team to a national title, making it to the Final Four. Can they run deep into the tournament? What about Michigan State? Look, you're telling me that you don't want to see Tom Izzo and Mike Krzyzewski coaching on the same basketball court? You don't want to see that? Come on. So I just feel as though the Big Ten was given a lot more. The breakdown of this is what they're looking at, guys, and you may not like it, but that's just the reality of things. Sure, things happen in tournament out of agreement. What was it, last year, the year before? Oklahoma State definitely should have got into the tournament. They were snubbed. But this is not about who gets in where, what seed I should be, because ultimately all that honestly becomes irrelevant in the NCAA tournament. When you start really considering what the tournament is all about, it is really not about where you're seated. It really is about being rewarded for your play during the season. And if it was in fact good enough, which is why when you are a conference tournament champion, you automatically get a bid into the NCAA tournament. That's your reward. That's what you're playing for, is an opportunity to go to the big dance. And when you're given that chance, you are seated what they deem to be appropriate, whether it's always correct or not. In this case with Michigan State, I know that they got it right. I don't think they did. I don't believe that they did. I know that they did. There has to be a penalty for losing. You cannot win every single game, and I am well aware of that. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're any less of a basketball team, especially at the collegiate level. But what it does mean is that ultimately not everybody can get in as a number one, whether you like it or not. And if you think that they're seated in place where they are specifically just because they want to see the potential of Duke and Michigan State, well, then I personally just don't see the rhyme or reason to that. Other than the things that I mentioned, and that is Mike Krzyzewski and Tom Izzo being on the same court coaching. Obviously the recent history with a team like Michigan State. But outside of that, what? What could be the true benefit? People are going to say money. Well, a lot of people think that there's money in New England going to the Super Bowl every single year, and the ratings were continuously good all the way up until last year when people just finally had enough when they played the Rams. And it was just like, dude, I'm done watching Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Believe me when I tell you, when all is said and done, it ultimately does nothing to help anybody's bottom dollar. It lines the Patriots' pockets. It lines Tom Brady's pockets. But that's about it. Who does it really help being a 2 seed and a 1 seed in the same bracket as somebody else? You're going to have big names in every single bracket, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's a given. There are so many well-established fan bases out there, and to just narrow it down and say, well, they just want to see Duke and Michigan State, I think is a bit of a far stretch. Because there are a lot of potentials in every tournament, every single year, where you could create some phenomenal matchups. I mean, hell, by that notation, you might as well give Syracuse a 2 seed, right? Just because they're Syracuse, and there's the possibility that they could go on to play Duke. There's the possibility that they could play Michigan State. There's the possibility that they could play Michigan. Syracuse and Michigan. How good does that sound on paper? So for people to just say, well, that's the reason, to me, it's got to go beyond that. You have to me, logically look at the season. And when you logically look at all 4 of these team seasons and the Big Ten as a whole, this is what they were given. This is what they looked at. Is it always something that should be seen on paper? Are there controversies in some of these games? Of course there are. But ultimately, at the end of the day, one team won and one team lost. There can only be one winner when it's all said and done. And I think that that's the main focus that we have to look at. I think given the 2 seed was probably as good as it was going to get for Michigan State. And I don't think that anybody should be really all up in arms about it. They are a solid basketball program this year. And I think that they also may have taken a look at some of the past success in the NCAA tournament and said, okay, we've made you a 4 seed sometimes and you've made incredible runs. And then the year that they finally give them a good seed when they really didn't even deserve it, they crashed and burned. So we'll see. I am Drew Duncan, host of the Full Court Press. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. When you share our posts, don't forget to use the hashtag Don't You Dare Touch That Dial. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.